2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. General GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting, the Great Barrington Select Board, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Pursuant to Mass General Law 7C 30A 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. So this meeting is being recorded by CTSB, Berkshire Edge, members of the public, and the town recorder. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items, those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So we'll start with the select board's announcements and statements. Lee.
Thanks, Steve. I just have two things for tonight. One was I was hoping we could look at the timing of the lights on the Brown Bridge or the Half a Red Bridge, I guess it's called. When you are stopped at the sign that says "Stop here" on red. When you're trying to go through it, often you get caught in this yellow and then it quickly turns to red, and then you're kind of in between two stools, whether to run the red light or risk getting hit by a big tractor trailer. So I was just hoping that we could address the timing of those lights, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second item that I'd like to bring up is the low underpass over to Connick. I think on January 30th, another truck got stuck under that underpass near the People's Pantry.
Yes.
And I would like to discuss either bringing some signage to that area or a flash and light. I know that we do have repeated problems on Christian Hill as well, but just because this just happened a little over a week ago on to Connick, and I'm just mindful because the People's Pantry's there. I was just hoping that we could look into doing something better to warn trucks that come along that there is a low overpass. So.
Yeah, we'll come back to you on both of those. Thanks, Lee. Kate?
I don't have anything.
Bill?
No, nothing.
Ed?
Yeah, I want to suggest a topic for a near future meeting. At the last town meeting, there was a sizable minority of people who brought up addressing the police budget, lowering the police budget. And, sort of two things I strongly believe. One is town meeting is not the place to start those discussions. Now is. And the other is you don't budget by looking at a number, you budget by looking at the stuff you want to do and figure out if you can afford it later. I want to, if we can, have a meeting where we just address not so much the police budget as the stuff the police, we'd use the budget, but the left side of the budget, where we look at the things the police are doing and invite those who want to reduce the police budget to suggest how, so we can start the discussion earlier. Again, it's not necessarily a budget meeting, but just to start talking with the police there about, what it is they're doing. So I guess what I'm saying is, Mark and Steve, between you, can you figure out a way and a time to do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Unless nobody else likes that idea.
I like that idea. It was, part of the proclamation that we made in June, and I think I've brought it up with Mark and with you all as well a few times about getting that kind of committee that reviews policing and business in Great Barrington and how we can make it more diverse and inclusive. So I think
the difference, Ed, is Ed, if I'm hearing this right, is talking simply funding and wants to do it before we get heavy into the budget.
I think
it's too late for this year.
It's never too late for this year. To at least
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think, to really review how we police in Great Barrington and make some real systemic changes, that's not going to happen between now and when we review budgets in a few weeks. I mean, I totally understand what Ed is saying, and I would have loved for this to have happened sooner, but we really dragged our heels in terms of making something happen substantially in this coming fiscal year.
Okay, anything else, Ed?
No, thanks.
Okay, I actually have something that's really good and it's important, and I want to say on behalf of the select board and the town manager, we want to thank Paul Ivory for all his hard work, time, and dedication for serving as the warden in precincts A, C, and D in Great Barrington for 14 years. The presidential election on November 3rd, 2020 was Paul's final time as warden as he decided it was time to hang up the boots. A warden is responsible for running the precincts on election day, and they make sure it can run as smooth as possible. They put a lot of time and energy into each and every election. Truly takes a lot of dedication to a town and its voters to uphold such a position. Over time, Paul has worked with a couple of different town clerks during the elections in Great Barrington. He worked with Mary Ellen Shook until 2007. Then he worked alongside Marie Ryan when she became town clerk in 2007, till she left the post in 2019. In the past year and a half, he has teamed up with Jennifer Messina, who is the current town clerk. Marie asked that we offer her most sincere gratitude for all of his years of service and his willingness to always do whatever was needed. Even though his tenure with Jennifer was short, she also agreed with Marie's sentiments. She really appreciated Paul making her election transition a little easier, being patient while she learned the ropes. From all of us in the town of Great Barrington, we want to thank you, Paul, and like to present you with this certificate of recognition. We know it's a lot of work, Paul. We know it's not glorious, and we know how well you did. So, Paul, thank you very much. Mark, do you want to just unmute Paul? He never is at a loss for words. We know Paul. Paul, if you unmute yourself, if you have anything you want to say.
Oh, Steve?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. It was a great honor to serve the town. And my strategy, we had three great town clerks. They're the ones that really run the show, and my strategy was just to get out of their way. But it was a lot of fun and an honor to serve at this grassroots level. And thank you so much for your kind words and the certificate.
Thank you, Paul, for all you do for the town.
And let's add, with all the controversy about this election, nobody called Great Barrington's results into question.
That's a plus.
Yes. Really appreciate it, Paul.
Thank you.
Town manager's report.
Okay, we can leave the meeting.
Thanks, Steve. I do have a few updates to share tonight. First off is the Houstonic Waterworks standing update on our agenda. Don't have anything new to report this week, but our engineers, of course, continue to work on the Phase 2 study and the appraisal for now. So again, we'll be circling back in the spring for a presentation by both engineers, AECOM and DPC. Next on my list is boarding committee vacancies. We have a number of opportunities available at the moment for residents to become involved. And I just wanted to take a minute to encourage anyone interested to email me or someone in my office if they do have an interest in serving. So I thought I would take an opportunity to just list the openings we have at the moment. The Affordable Housing Trust has 2 vacancies. The Agricultural Commission has 2 vacancies. Our Community Impact Funding Committee has 1 vacancy. Our Cultural Council has 14 vacancies for a total of 22 committee members. Our Housatonic Improvement Committee has 2 vacancies. And just keep in mind that you need to live in Sector B, the Housatonic Village, to participate in that committee. The Housing Authority has 1. Our Planning Board has an associate member seat vacant. Our Strategic Sustainability and Livability Committee has 3 vacancies. And finally, our Zoning Board of Appeals has 1 associate member vacancy open at this time. Next up on my list is the Housatonic Improvement Committee, and I just wanted to provide an update, and I want to start with just apologizing for the abbreviations on our agenda. I will correct that for the February 22nd meeting, just in case HIC is not clear to everyone. Anyway, Dan Bailey and Eric Gabriel, the chair and co-chairs of the Housatonic Improvement Committee, requested a little more time, so we'll be hearing from them on the 22nd, and I'm expecting a brief update on the work they've been doing to date, and specifically on their progress with the Housatonic School. So we'll just move this one to the next agenda. And lastly, the fiscal 22 budget season, I just wanted to take an opportunity again. We did put out a press statement last week, but I wanted to just remind everyone that may have missed it that our fiscal 22 budget season will be starting next week. And this year it will be easier than ever for people to participate in the process because we're doing these meetings virtually. So our website calendar has all 5 dates up on our website now. So you can go to our calendar and find those. There are 5 in total, beginning with an overview on Tuesday the 16th and then concluding with a public hearing on March 30th. And we'll also get a copy of the proposed budget up on the website by the end of this week so that people can read it in advance of those meetings. And that's all I have.
Okay, next we have Waylon Benbow for an annual common victualers license for the Subway restaurant at 246 Stockbridge Road. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second. Okay, someone has their hand up, so. Hand's gone, so we're okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? So it's all votes are roll call. So Lee,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and I, it's unanimous. Under new business, referral proposed zoning amendments to the planning board for public hearing. This is just a procedural vote that we take every year. So Ed, do I have a motion?
I have a couple of questions. Should I make the motion first?
I do too.
You can ask the questions.
Okay, one, it's not a question. I just want to point out, and I will go, in the past, we have not weighed in on this as a board, right? We go as individuals if we want.
Well, and really, as at the public hearing, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just one, okay, then I will leave that one for later. I recommend everybody read zoning changes and participate in the hearing if you want. I do have a question about the map on the back, which is probably for Chris. The last page of the, are the boundaries changing? Specifically, I couldn't tell. There was a fat red line on one side of River Street and a thick red line on the other, or a thin red line on the other. Is the piece of River Street included in B3?
No, there are no proposed map changes.
Okay.
The fixed red line is the existing.
So the motion is to send this back to the planning board for a hearing.
Send this to the planning board.
That's, yes.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. So motion by Ed, a second by Bill. Any questions?
I had some questions about the map, or not the map, the table of use, and maybe now is not the time to talk about it.
Yeah, this is really you can, but this is really a procedural vote that we're taking.
Okay.
But
When do you think would be appropriate for us as I guess it was just, a lumber yard is allowed, but sawmills aren't in this area. You have to have a special permit by the select board to have a restaurant in this area. I'm curious just in general why adult daycare is a planning board special permit across the board.
Should we schedule a discussion?
I don't know. I mean,
why not?
Right, should the select board discuss this at some point?
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I just have a ton of questions. I mean, specific to B3, I have a ton of questions about
Right,
the
me too.
table of use.
Chris, can we put this on our next agenda? You be okay with that?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll put it on the next agenda and we'll discuss this. Because there never is a right time for us to discuss it, so let's make a time.
No, and then it like says in some places that drive ups and drive throughs aren't allowed, but then in some places it's by special permit. So there's just some clarity that I think I need maybe. So
Yeah.
Happy to discuss. We'll focus just on that B3 column, however.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, roll call vote to refer this to the planning board for their proposed hearing, for their public hearing. Lee,
Aye.
Kate,
Hi.
Bill,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and I. It's unanimous.
And Steve, just for the board's knowledge and those citizens who may be listening, there were 3 citizen petitions that were not acted on at the September 2020 town meeting, special town meeting. The meeting was adjourned and everything was pushed over to the 2021 annual.
Yes.
Those weren't acted on. Will also be advertised for the public hearing and heard on the same date. So that this planning board article plus those, and if you're aware of any other citizen petitions that are new, we will hear them all on that night.
Has that date been set, Chris?
It's the 11th of March.
We might as well publicize that now. So March 11th will be. That's terrific. Mark, budget policy.
Thanks, Steve. The draft budget policy for fiscal year 22 that was included in your revised packet for this evening is basically unchanged from last year and was approved unanimously by the Finance Committee last Tuesday. So we're looking for the Select Board to approve this as well tonight with one edit, and Ed is prepared to make a motion to correct one mistake. And I believe Ann O'Dwyer is also on the line tonight.
Yes.
And
And
may
it's
want to
online
comment.
and unmuted. So let's get the motion and the second, and then we'll have Ann speak.
Let me make the change. It's not actually a change. What's in the packet isn't last year's budget policy. It's from the year before. So we made this change already, but on the financial goals, which I believe is on page 1, the last bullet point should say, work to keep the overall tax levy reasonable in consideration of other priorities and goals. So that's actually the existing policy. It's just we're a year behind. The one in the packet's a year old. So without objection, a motion to approve the budget policy with that line in it.
Sure. Second. So I have a motion by Ed, a second by Bill. Ann, you would like to say something, please?
Yeah, sure. I just want to clarify. So just to go into details what happened was the Finance Committee voted on the wording that I understand is in front of you. And then there was a joint Select Board Finance Committee meeting, I think exactly 2 weeks later, where we changed the wording on that policy from as low as possible to the wording, Ed, that you just mentioned. And I just want to apologize. What I sent to the Finance Committee meeting last week was the original one that the Finance Committee had approved on January 14th. The Finance Committee did also vote at the joint meeting to approve this rewording. So what you are voting on tonight has been voted last year by both the Select Board and the Finance Committee. And again, the Finance Committee voted at our meeting last week not to make any major changes to the policy this year as well. So I will bring this rewording back to the Finance Committee next week.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question or a comment, I guess. Under strategic priorities, it's the 5th bullet point, maintain developed, stable, and healthy communities. And I'm just curious, I guess I don't really know what that means. But I'm also feel like it doesn't really talk about developing or stabilizing or making healthy, unhealthy portions of our community. And I just feel like that could be a better sentence.
Make a motion to amend?
I mean, I guess I don't quite know what to amend it to because I don't quite understand what it is saying. But I guess maybe it would be, I mean, or just, I mean, this one before it is strive for a high quality of life. Perhaps maybe this line isn't necessary.
Comments?
Sort of with Kate. I'm not sure what it means either.
So why doesn't Kate make a motion to delete that line and amend?
All right. I'll make an amendment to the motion to delete the line maintain developed, stable, and healthy communities.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I mean, that, for me, it's it kind of, it's clear for me, so, but I'm not going to hold up the vote, so.
Explain it to us.
I feel like it means it's exclusionary in some ways, and that's the part of it that I have a hard time with. It feels like we're keeping what's developed and stable and healthy in its place and not working or striving to help others. And so it just doesn't sit right with me.
That's fine.
So that's how I feel about it.
Any other discussion on the amendment to the motion? Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill? Aye. Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Now to the motion. Any other discussion? Yes.
There is a typo. Does that matter?
Just tell us what it is. We don't have to go too far with it.
Okay, it's under town, but it's under the budget. Sorry. It's the. I'm sorry. I can't see without my glasses on my phone. Sorry. I can just send. Oh, it's under town budget format. It says town manager to pro/-ide, and I think it's supposed to be provide complete financial statement.
Thank
So.
you. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. It's the amended motion that we're voting on. So it's a roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. So Ann, you'll take this back to the Finance Committee, correct?
Coming back to the Finance Committee anyway, then it sounds like.
Yes, so we'll have one other thing.
Well, I'll put that on for for next week's. Can we put that on for the joint?
Yes,
Yeah, thank you,
we'll figure out how we're
Okay.
gonna word it, but we'll do it.
thank you.
Okay, moving ahead. The Trust Policy Committee. Mark, you wanna lead off on this?
Sure. So included in your packet tonight is an executive summary, a proposed charter, as well as a copy of our 2017 trust policy. And the executive summary recommends that the board consider forming a 7-member committee to uphold and enforce the policy, the trust policy. And then once established, revisit this conversation to discuss broadening or possibly broadening the scope of this committee to a police oversight committee, or forming a separate police oversight committee altogether. So the executive summary really is just teeing up the conversation for tonight.
Discussion, and that includes members of the public. Ed?
Yeah, the only question I had was the membership is for people from South County towns as opposed to just Great Barrington. The thinking behind that, other than the fact that we can't seem to fill our committees.
I think we really want to get experts, in the field of inclusion, and we felt like diversifying that field in terms of where people live might help.
Other discussion? Jeff Loans, no, go ahead, Lee.
Oh, sorry. I do remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, when this was brought up in Oversight Committee, that Chief Walsh felt strongly not in favor of it, and I could be wrong, but I just wanted to talk about the likelihood of this becoming or having a citizen oversight committee. Perhaps this isn't the time to talk about it, but I'm just curious, how does that roll out and how does that look like, and who gets the ultimate, final decision whether it is that there is an oversight committee?
Mark?
So I think, and Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you were thinking is that we would establish this trust policy committee, and at some point we'd have another conversation about either morphing this committee into also a police oversight committee or establishing a separate committee altogether, and that would be a select board decision.
I think, like you said, Lee, when we were going through this process of the proclamation, it was something that the former chief felt strongly about. There wasn't a need for an oversight committee. And so I think you and I had in writing had decided that, the trust policy committee was something that was supposed to exist starting in 2017. And so it really is time. It's more than time to establish that. And then we also decided that there would be a committee that reviewed policing in Great Barrington and see how it could be morphed or developed into something else, or just be better, just to really dive into that. And that potentially the outcome of that committee would say that an oversight committee would be a really good thing for the town of Great Barrington to have. And so I think, we can make that decision anytime I think we want, but I think if we wanted to give due course to what we kind of had laid out, it would be going the avenue of trying to establish that committee that's looking at policing first, and then deciding whether either this board or that board kind of changes into that place.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess two things. I'd be curious or interested to hear what the new chief has to say, and also I believe that Pittsfield has a kind of a citizen advisory police board. So I'd be curious to see how that's going, and what is on their plate in terms of what do they actually do? Do they just investigate or look into complaints? So I'm just looking for a little bit more shape on that, and if we're going to go in that direction, I'd like to get started on it now rather than have this trust just sit here for another 3 years and then do something. So I kind of feel like it's a parallel that we can move things both at the same time forward. So that would just be my request.
Okay. Jeff Lowenstein?
Thanks, Steve. Hey, everybody. My name's Jeff Lowenstein. I live at 1066 Main Street in Housatonic. And I just wanted to come. I was part of the campaign working with Bridge to pass the trust policy back in 2017. And I wanted to start just by saying that I'm really happy to see the town following through on the commitment to establish a trust policy commission. I think it's awesome to move on this. And I also wanted to say that I think, being involved in the campaign, part of the real value of the trust policy and what made it work was the real emphasis on transparency and inclusivity in process. I remember drafting the original trust policy. We actually got a group of 15, 20 people around a table, everyone from undocumented members of our community to police officers to municipal employees, nonprofit representatives, to really just put our heads together. And I wanted to ask, what steps are being taken to sort of ensure that transparency and that inclusivity is being carried forward in establishing the commission? And has that kind of conversation with stakeholder groups, with Bridge, really been done in bringing this together? I think it's really critical to have that same transparency and accountability in recruiting members and structuring the commission. Based on how complaints are going to be heard and handled, and especially I think in making that decision about whether this is also going to serve as a police oversight committee. So I'd just love to hear from the select board about what that process has looked like and what steps are planned. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Erica Milkey?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Hi, I live at 13 East Street in Great Barrington, and I was also part of the campaign through Bridge and the broader community to get the word out about the trust policy. I actually had no idea until just last week that besides passing it, nothing further had happened. It was a little disheartening. So I'm happy, Lee, to hear you saying like, yeah, let's take this action now. And I went back and was looking at the wording of the trust policy that was worked so hard on, like Jeff said, from a broad array of our community. And the part that really stood out to me was about training. And it said Great Barrington will provide training to town employees regarding these policies and practices in alignment with accreditation requirements and serving the purpose of our trust policy. And I really feel like training is essential to ensure that we're following through on this to be a, quote, safe, inclusive, and welcoming community. I think many of us take a lot of pride in that, for having passed it, for working hard on it. But if we're not taking action on it, so I guess my question is, how will training be prioritized? And will the Trust Policy Committee have any recourse if training recommendations are either ignored or kind of like pushed to the bottom of the list of priorities, especially as it relates to the police? So that's where I'm concerned.
Thank you. So what I figure we're doing is, I hope Mark or someone is taking notes on this, and then we'll answer all of these either tonight or at a subsequent meeting. So I'd like to just hear what everyone has to say, and then we'll move ahead.
Can I give a quick answer to Jeff on transparency?
Yeah.
Just that because it's a select board appointment, absolutely everything it does and we do is at public meetings. So there is that. It'll be advertised for people who are interested in being on it. Those decisions are made in public. I think that answers your question, but if not, nudge Mark and he'll get a longer, better answer later.
Gwendolyn Van Sant.
Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Van Sant from 202 State Road in Great Barrington. And I also want to thank you all for keeping the trust policy conversation alive at the select board level. I have a bit of a different perspective. I think that there has been trust policy work. I've had a few meetings with Chief Walsh and his sergeants at the time, and we really outlined his discomfort with the commission, but he was also interested in figuring out how to make it work. And I think the most important parts is how we hear how there is transparency on police activity and also how that impacts community. And also since then we actually had the Citizens Academy, and that was in partnership with the police department. And that was a really good trust building opportunity where activists and people in the community, including some of the folks that helped draft the trust policy, were in a course with the Great Barrington Police Department. So to me, that's what is up in the spirit of the trust policies, that we continue to build relationship and bridges of understanding. And I don't necessarily have a question for you. I just want folks to kind of understand that the work has been happening and that I'm really interested in talking to Chief Storty and Sergeant Carlotta about the next steps and all that. And then I also echo what Erica Milky said, that training is really important. And I know that there was some accreditation moves also that the department made. But I also just want to say, since I have the audience right now, that you, through the Municipal Vulnerability Action Grant for Climate Justice, there is training available to all municipal employees and community residents. And it's been active for 5 weeks, and it's going to be running for another 5 to 6 weeks. So I just think if folks are interested, that training happens on Tuesday nights and it's Thursday mornings for all town employees. So I that should be acted upon now. We've gone through the work of creating that opportunity for the employees and for the town. And I think that's it. I like Lee believe that there should be trust policy work and also an advisory committee for the police. And I think that those two things aren't mutually exclusive and could work in collaboration. And that's all I have to say for now, but thank you.
Thanks, Gwen.
Yeah.
Dan Nielsen.
Hi, thank you, Dan Nielsen. I am a resident of Monterey, but an employee of Bard College at Simon's Rock in Great Barrington. I would like to say I participated in the Citizens Academy that Gwendolyn just mentioned a couple of years ago now, run by the Great Barrington Police Department. I was impressed at the pride that they take in their work and their focus on community policing. And I think there's a real possibility to work to build and increase trust between the police department and the community, given that approach. I've been a volunteer in Bridge's food distribution work since the beginning of the pandemic. And from that experience, it's quite clear that there's a lot of people in the immigrant community here in the Berkshires, in our community, that are really not being adequately supported by existing safety net mechanisms. There are already organizations, including Bridge, who are working to provide that support. They're working on limited resources, but even despite the limitations on their resources, these organizations have built trust with communities, with vulnerable folks in our community. So I want to know how the town will be able to move forward with these organizations that have already worked to build trust and help advance that and support that under the umbrella of this trust policy. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. Lily Swartz.
Hi, y'all. I'm Lily Swartz. I live at 115 East Street. I know you can't see me right now, but I'm holding a toddler who just bit his tongue, so there might be some background noise, but I think he's okay now. I was also involved through Bridge as a volunteer with the passing of the trust policy in 2017, and then also took the Citizens Academy course that Gwendolyn spoke to. And just reflecting on the trust policy itself, one thing that really stands out to me from that experience was that it was really specifically crafted to be in alignment with work that the town had already kind of said, like within the town's mission, and really just kind of trying to like codify, laying out a specific clear set of principles and policies to actually like live into the work of creating a safer place for all residents and community members. And that what certainly like was in the context focused on immigrants, but not exclusive to that community, with like really looking at marginalized groups along lines of race and class, gender, sexuality, disability, and like the intersections of all of that. So, one learning for me from that experience and in this work was just seeing the extent to which like this is achieved both from like the teeth and intent of the policy itself, but also the process that drives it, like the work behind it, and really holding to this piece of like process is a part of the outcome and the goal itself. Either as a way to build trust or erode it. So personally, I'm really glad to see the town taking like additional ownership of this work and coming back to this like foundational policy to help move this forward. And I just want to ask the select board to share or reflect on the ways that this frame is going to continue to be held, especially in terms of engagement with the organizations that did a lot of the groundwork in 2017 and also with the impacted communities directly. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ann Alquist.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm Ann Alquist. I live at 219 South Street in Housatonic. And I just wanted to chime in and say that I'm also in support of the Trust Policy Commission. I'm happy to see that it's moving forward now. And one thing that I've heard that just made me a little concerned was hearing about Chief Walsh's or former Chief Walsh's resistance to having a community oversight board for the police. And I'm wondering, maybe I know I don't know, the full context of that, but I just want to say as a citizen and a taxpayer and a homeowner and that I believe that I really respect what the job of the police, but I do believe that their job is to protect and serve the community. And so it just only makes sense to me that the community would have an oversight board, that the community would have some sort of a say over what they do and how they do it. And so I want to strongly just put my 2 cents in that I think we should have a community oversight board, and that I also agree with what Gwendolyn said, that it seems like a no-brainer that would dovetail with the basketball task force. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen and for your service.
So I'm trying to get Tom Doyle. I have to promote him to panelist because he's using an older Zoom. But instead I've gotten Elena Sue.
Hi, I live in Egremont and have not been part of the trust policy process at all yet, but am very happy to see this happening. I had one concern, which is that the commission, as outlined, seemed complaint-driven rather than data-driven. And relying on complaints has a couple, at least, issues. Some people may not want to highlight their experience by making a complaint. And there are other people who might not realize there's something to complain about because they only see their own experience. And I know that collecting data and making that available to the commission is a burden on police, but it's something that I think would enable the commission to have a better view of whether practices and policies are actually equitable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Doyle. Just have to unmute yourself, Tom. I just need you to unmute yourself and then you can go right ahead and speak. Okay, I'll give it another second. We've right at about 20 minutes ago, we had 7 panelists and 43 attendees. I had promised to give the numbers sometime during the meeting. So then, Tom, if you can unmute yourself later, we will be glad to hear you. So, board members, that's all the comments that we have right now. Where do we want to go with this? Do we want to come back and revise this? Do we want to revise it now? How do we want to go on this?
I'm happy to, I feel like I'm happy to, there's one line in the policy, if I remember correctly, that would establish this as a police oversight committee as well as the trust policy committee. I know that was part of what, I'm happy for it to be both. I think that we absolutely should have it. I think the only reason when Mark and I kind of talked about this and I pushed the trust policy part of it was that because we had promised and discussed previously kind of a set way in which we would move forward with this. So I'm happy to do whatever the board feels best to do right now.
The motion as written by staff includes both.
Right. But I think that was just I think some of that was for discussion. I think it makes complete sense that they are one and the same. But I think the only reason that I felt the need to discuss it as separate was because that was what we had said we would do. But I don't think there's any reason for it to be otherwise. And I think to something that Jeff said earlier, we could look at being more specific about who those 7 members of this committee are, whether we have one as a representative of the immigrant community, somebody from the police department, somebody from, we could be more specific about who every member is, but we find when we do that, we get we have a harder and harder time filling those spots. I think there's a way to say that as a board, we're making some sort of commitment to having a diverse or representing committee members. I mean, obviously, all of us won't be here every time we replace people, so I don't think that. I'm wondering if the language could be different in how we say it's a 7-person board.
Well, I'm reading it and it just says, create a working group to reflect the needs of our community. And this is something that Mark would, the select board would pick the 7 people, or Mark would?
Select board.
Select board.
This will be a select board.
We could,
Okay.
we could also say,
Okay.
we could say to reflect the needs and diversity of our community.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. We could just add that.
Let me give that a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one person with their hand up and I may have missed them. I may not have. They don't have a name, so that makes it more difficult. So I'm going to allow them to speak, and just briefly. If you had your hand up and you don't have a name, you can go ahead and speak.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Hi, it's William Walk, Park Street, Great Barrington resident. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I just want to correct one thing. Mrs. Van Sant said, and she should not have said it. She was wrong, and it's going to be clear for the record, I'm not against this at all. And I speak for myself. No one else speaks for me, and she should not have said that. I'm the one in 2016, as you know, went to the Obama White House and spoke with his senior staff about 21st century policing. If you read that document, it's got chapter after chapter about police oversight and community involvement. And I signed our department in our town onto that in 2016. Long before I think any of this other initiatives that we're talking about tonight. So I was way ahead of all this in 2016 at the Obama White House. And so I speak for myself, and she should not have said that. Already you've got another resident saying, oh, must be true, the chief. It's not true, okay? And the other comment is that whether you combine them and make them separate committees, I think either one would work. I just think that if you combine them, we just have to be clear that the trust policy applies to everybody and not just police. So the tricky part would be, kind of separating, it applies to the police, but applies to everybody. And that's just kind of wordsmithing how that would be done. So either way would be fine. I'm not opposed to it. And I speak for myself.
Thank you, Bill. Gwen, I'll give you about 30 seconds because you've already spoken once, but go right ahead.
Thank you for that, because I just want to say that I didn't say that Chief Walsh objected to it. He was actually in the pictures and partnering with us, so I just didn't want that to go uncorrected. I know you all heard me, but I just wanted to say again that I did not say that about Chief Walsh. So thank you.
So what's the board's?
May I try a motion?
You may.
Okay, I'm going to move to create a working group that reflects the needs and diversity of our community, to review current practices and policies, and if necessary, to make recommendations with respect to police department transparency and accountability, handling of allegations of misconduct, directing resources to community-based services to support residents and divert them from the criminal justice system.
A second. Discussion. I have a motion by Ed, a second by Bill. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, it's a roll call vote. Lee.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Ed. And I. So it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Personnel policy, Mark.
Thanks, Steve. So in your packet for tonight is another version of our personnel policy. And this is our second conversation about this. And since our last conversation, we did make a few edits. We added a new diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. We updated the dress code policy to address tattoos and hair and beards. And also, we updated the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy. And then beyond that was just some typos that we corrected. So I know Ed has some edits to discuss related to the drug and alcohol-free workplace policy. If you want to jump to page
30.
29, 30? 30, sorry. I think I have an older version here.
So yeah, my concern was it was unclear about where marijuana fell. So the working with Mark came up with the following additions. The drug and alcohol restrictions in the workplace, that first paragraph, the sentence, this does not apply to employees' use of current valid prescription medications that do not interfere with the employee's ability to safely perform their job with competence, then adding the words, including medically prescribed marijuana, period. And then one other change, the two paragraphs down the paragraph that starts with the town acknowledges. When enacting this policy, add the words, for the purpose of this policy, marijuana is considered a controlled substance except in circumstances where an employee has a current valid prescription for the use of marijuana. So it more or less clarifies marijuana is still considered a drug as per federal policy, unless you have a prescription, in which case it's dealt with like other prescription drugs.
So do you want to make a motion to approve the policy with those two changes?
So moved.
A second. So discussion.
So does this, I apologize because I'm trying to remember. Is this for employees that have CBA licenses or ones without?
Go ahead, Mark. I think without.
This is for employees without a CDL.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. CDL. Thank you.
And just
Okay,
to be clear, my problems with this had nothing to do with what the policy was, just the ability of an employee to understand the policy when reading this. So
No, that makes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Did you, Mark, when we spoke earlier today, we were trying to make that language like a little bit more, when we were at the diversity and inclusion about complaints. Were you able to think of something, because maybe as a board, Ed's really good with words. Maybe he can think of something. Were you able to come up with something or find what was in?
Where are we?
I wanted to.
Mark, what page? I'm trying to scroll.
So, page 2 is the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. And the last sentence reads, employees who believe they have been subjected to any kind of discrimination should seek assistance from a direct supervisor or the town manager. I would suggest changing that to say a direct supervisor, the town manager, or any other appropriate authority.
Great.
Okay, do you want to make that as amendment to Ed's motion?
I would like to amend Ed's motion to include on page 2 after town or the town to / or it should be direct supervisor, the town manager, or other appropriate authorities.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Kate, a second by Ed. Any discussion on the amendment?
I guess the only other thing is, would that be, is that the language that's in sexual harassment and other issues in the?
If the board is comfortable with that language, we can use that in every section of the policy where reporting is required.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just bring this up in terms of, you know, I won't want anybody to feel like if something happens that they can't report it to somebody. And, you know, I know in town hall, the buck stops with the select board or the town manager, but what if somebody needs to report something that we did or something that the town manager did? I want to make sure that the policy reflects the ability to go wherever necessary.
So I have a motion and a second. It's amendment to Ed, so a roll call vote. Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye. So now we have the main motion, which was Ed's original motion. Is there any other discussion on that? Hearing none. Lee?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous. Very good. That actually is a huge step forward. This policy's been coming for a long time, so congratulations on that one. Okay, so we're not at 7 o'clock yet, so we will do the Lover's Lane, and then we'll do the joint meeting with the Great Barrington Housing Authority. We have to do it after 7. So tonight, there's a stakeholder discussion about Lover's Lane, Route 7. We're not making any decisions tonight. There's a traffic survey being done, and we felt it was important as a select board to hear people who would be affected by this, people who lived in that area. So if anyone is on, and we've gotten a number of emails which were in the packet, which were very helpful and very clear. Is there anyone on tonight's call who's a stakeholder who would just raise your hand and we'll give you a chance to talk?
While you're looking, there were a number of letters from people who live near there with some really good suggestions, and I just am grateful for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Amanda Height, go right ahead. Just unmute yourself. I think you muted yourself. Again, you were unmuted for a second, then you became muted. There you are, right there.
There, is that better?
That's perfect. Just state your name and address, please.
I'm Amanda Height. I'm at 7 Lovers Lane in Great Barrington.
Also stakeholder than that.
I am here with my husband, who is also a resident, and my parents who live next door at 9 Lovers Lane. We're kind of just in a group here. My parents have sent in emails regarding their thoughts on our intersection up here. And I just have a short little statement that I wanted to read to the select board.
Sure, correct.
My husband and I have lived on Lovers Lane for almost 14 years. My parents have lived on Lovers Lane for over 20 years. In that time, there have been 2 accidents at our intersection of Lovers Lane and Route 7. It is not a blind intersection. You can clearly see in both directions when attempting to turn, even in the summer when the trees have leafed out. Making Lovers Lane a one-way road causes problems for people wanting to access Lovers Lane coming from north on Route 7, as I do every day because I work in Pittsfield. Stopping in the southbound lane on Route 7 to turn left onto our road, coming to a complete stop at a 55-mile-an-hour road, is going to cause more accidents. We also have 2 children in the middle school, and asking a school bus to stop into traffic to make that turn is, we all feel, crazy. Closing the road completely at that intersection would add precious minutes to emergency response time in getting to those of us that live on Lovers Lane. Several people might say that it's not a lot of time, but if they were the ones looking for assistance from an ambulance or a fire truck, you would want them to get there as fast as possible. If the town is looking to do something, which we are against in this household, our suggestion is a no left turn onto Route 7. From our point of view, it's the least obstructive way to attempt making the intersection safer, and at the same time keeping our road accessible to all of the residents. My husband and I were home, and we heard the crash that occurred in December. And we left our home and went running to Route 7 to see if we could assist. We were some of the first people there after that crash had happened. While what we witnessed at that accident scene was tragic, we do continue to use that intersection every day without fear of traffic. if we were scared to make that left-hand turn onto Route 7, there is another option for us. We can go down to Monument Valley Road and go out onto Route 7 by the light at the schools. Everybody has that same option. If you don't like the intersection on Route 7, you don't have to take our road. That's my full statement.
Thank you, Amanda. Anyone else? So seeing no one else.
Oh, Charlie's got his hand up.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
I just saw. Charlie, go ahead.
Hi, Charlie Berger, Great Barrington Fire Chief. I just want to say that Lover's Lane is actually used by us as a shortcut to the center of Monument Valley Road and accessing Upper Blue Hill all the time. It's already one of the furthest places for us to respond in town, and no matter how we go, it takes an extensive amount of time. Lover's Lane is a 1.2 mile shortcut for us. So I would definitely not be in favor of closing the road altogether. With regards to eliminating a left-hand turn or whatever, that would not affect our responses at all. But to close it, I would not be in favor of.
Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else?
Can I suggest a motion, or is it?
No, I think we're still doing a traffic study, aren't we?
Well, that's, yeah, okay.
No, you go ahead, Ed.
Just that, after hearing from what we got in writing from a number of neighbors, and from the police chief, and now Charlie, it just seems like, better signage would probably be a great first step. But if we're doing the traffic study, let's listen to that first.
Are we doing a traffic study, Mark?
No, if I could just clarify, we did not proceed with a traffic study. We wanted to invite stakeholders in first so that we wouldn't spend money on an engineering study if it wasn't necessary or desired by this group.
In case it didn't get
Just make a motion, just make in terms
motion to request that town staff work with DOT and consider better signage for that intersection.
Yeah, second. So any other discussion? Yes, Lee.
What is the better signage? You mean no left turn or just, what do you?
Oh, I guess I'm thinking not at this point, not changing traffic patterns, just dangerous intersection or something like that. Even if it means a flashing light when somebody pulls up, that was one of the suggestions. But again, working with DOT to see what's possible.
Well, I'd like to look at the no left turn. I'd like to bring that up to discussion. I mean, we had a fatality, and it is a dangerous intersection. It's it's a blind hill. There's it's fast moving. So I mean, we're not talking about inconvenience. We're talking about fatality. So I mean, I think at the very least we should make it no left turn there. I think we'd be doing injustice to people, for not even actually trying to make it safer. And I think at the very least we should make it no left turn.
Anyone else? Amanda, I'll let you speak just briefly.
Steve, this is Jim Santos from Lover's Lane.
Yep.
I just wanted to make a comment to what Lee was talking about, the dangerous intersection there. I've lived up here for over 60 years, both in my parents' house and now living on Lover's Lane. And I just don't, as long as you're careful when you pull out onto Route 7, you're okay. You just got to be careful when you pull out and look both ways. That's all I wanted to say. I know that the Route 7 traffic goes fast, but if you're careful, I pulled out of my parents' house for 40 years onto Route 7 and never had any accidents there, and there was never any problem. And the same thing with Lover's Lane. I think Ed's idea is appropriate, and I think that's the best way to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? So we have a motion on the table to put improved signage and not to change the traffic pattern. It's a roll call vote. Lee?
No.
No. Kate?
I guess, sorry, I'm wondering if we do that and check back in with if like we can put something on the calendar to check back in with the stakeholders in a year, 6 months or a year after the signage goes up.
You can
Like-
always do that.
Right, but I'm just thinking like, can Mark put a thing in his calendar? Can Sean put a thing in his calendar to check back in a year? Because I feel I'm a yay. Like, I think it's the right move, but how do we follow up on knowing it's the right move when there's been one fatality at this intersection? You know? So,
So your vote was
aye.
Bill, Ed, and I, so it passes it with 4-1. Okay, citizen speak time for the select board meeting. Seeing no one with their hands up, select board time, Lee.
I just hope that, you guys proved me wrong and we don't have another fatality. So that's all I have to say. I think we should have done more for
Okay.
Lovers Lane.
Thank you, Lee. Okay,
We'll blame Ed. I just wanted to kind of follow up to what I had said at the beginning of the meeting to Ed, and that I don't think that what he is suggesting in terms of getting some sort of group together to talk about what their suggestions are for reforming, changing, rebudgeting, policing in Great Barrington is a bad idea. I just think suggesting it this late in the game and forming a 2022 budget is kind of just throwing a bone at something that is a serious conversation. So,
thank you, Glenn. Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted to recommend the program that Gwen and Bridge are putting on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you're not taking it, you should consider it. That's all.
Thank you, Bill. Ed? No. And I have nothing. So it is 7:10, and now we have to see, Mark, if you could help me see who's on the line from the Housing Authority.
Do we need to adjourn our last meeting?
We're gonna just roll it into this. I know Eileen is. And Mary Pat. So let's promote them.
I'm wondering if Jim Mercer is one of the callers. I don't see him listed.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm promoting Eileen's phone also.
Now she can talk.
Yes. I don't have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Somehow Michael Kernan got promoted. I'm not sure. He's not a board member of the Housing Authority. And someone has Jim's number without reading it, and that's his last 3 digits. I don't have Jim's number, I don't think. Yes, I do. It's not any number I have for Jim.
Okay, I just promoted Mary Pat. I think I hit Michael Kernan by accident.
Okay, that's fine. And Marie is not able to be here, and I don't see Jim. I don't know. He's here. He's hidden himself.
He just sent me a text saying he is on the select board meeting, so we just need to find him.
It's Monday. Finding Jim is like finding Waldo. I'm not in the mood. Could he tell us what he's under?
I just asked.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a joint meeting of the Select Board and Housing Authority to fill a vacancy. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, we have one applicant, and that would be John Grogan.
That's correct.
So we do this as one vote or two votes? Because we had some discussion last time.
This is one vote of the two boards together.
So we have, do I have a motion?
Is that us or them?
Go ahead.
Could I ask a question?
You may, Eileen.
Is the candidate here?
I was looking for that. I don't see him.
I did speak to him earlier and asked him to attend, but I'm not seeing him either.
Could
I
be
asked him.
unlisted numbers.
I asked him to attend if he could. I should correct myself.
Right. And I don't have his phone number, so I'm going to assume he's not here. So the answer is no, Eileen.
Thank you.
And make the motion to appoint John Grogan to fill the vacancy on the Housing Authority Board.
I'll second.
Discussion. Hearing none, it's a roll call vote. So I'll start on my screen with Eileen.
Yes, to appoint.
Thank you. Mary Pat? That's a yes. Jim Mercer?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And yes, it's unanimous. Anything else from either board? Citizen speak time for this meeting? And I didn't ask for media time at the last one, so I'll ask for media time at this one.
Never mind.
Thank you.
Ignore it.
I would never ignore you. By unanimous consent, the joint meeting is adjourned, as is the select board meeting. Thank you, everyone. It was a very-
Thank you.
Thank you.